Good Tuesday morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us from the Ohio AgNet, the voice you know with the News You Trust studio, sponsored by BASF, where you can count on the trusted performance of Elevo seed treatment to protect your soybean crop. I'm Joe Everett, bringing you today's farm news. Well, tractor and combine sales slowed down in November, and it's something many farmers can relate to. According to the Association of Equipment Manufacturers, U.S. tractor sales were down nearly 20% from a year ago, while combine sales dropped 35%. As we moved north of the border, the picture was mixed. Canadian combine sales were actually up 25%, but tractor sales still fell about 7%. AEM Senior Vice President Kurt Blade says the number reflects the ongoing economic pressure farmers have been dealing with for months now. He notes this looks like a short-term slowdown, and manufacturers are still focused on providing equipment that boosts efficiency and long-term value. Looking ahead to 2026, AEM says it's keeping a close eye on the market conditions and remains confident in the overall strength of the ag industry. Now let's check in with our own Ty Higgins for this week's podcast.
Episode 444 of the Ohio AgNet podcast is online at ohioagnet.com, a video and audio version as I visit with Bill Patterson, president of Ohio Farm Bureau, at last week's annual meeting in Columbus. He says as much as those 2 days are about planning for the future, it's also a chance to celebrate the victories of 2025.
Creating a new health plan, unbelievable. The amount of work that we've done to put in farmland protections, the amount of policy work we've done, the work that went into the One Big Beautiful Bill, was that the way that we wanted it to happen? Not necessarily, but we really hit on some of the major issues that we're having in farm stability. And so really celebrating what we've done and the way we've been able to do some things that sort of help alleviate the challenges that we're facing in agriculture today.
Also in this week's podcast, Dale visits with the new president of Ohio Corn and Wheat, Eric Tipton, who talks about all the opportunities in the upcoming year.
As you look at 2026 as a whole, we have some really exciting things kind of hanging fire. We are so close on E15, and the biofuels circle is just, there's so many exciting avenues that we can go with there. You talk about sustainable aviation fuel, we talk about E15, and sometimes we hear some other things like marine fuel and those sorts of things. So it's a really interesting space that I think that we have a lot of opportunity in.
You can listen and watch the new podcast online at ohioagnet.com. I'm Ty Higgins reporting.
Hey, thanks, Ty, for the update. Well, the USDA has confirmed Wisconsin's first known case of the highly pathogenic avian influenza in dairy cattle. The case was detected through routine milk testing as part of the National Monitoring Program. Officials say the affected farm has been quarantined and any sick animals are being separated and treated. The virus has mainly impacted late lactation dairy cows with symptoms including reduced feed intake and lower milk production. While cases have been confirmed in 18 states since the outbreak began in 2024, USDA says only a small number of states have seen infections this year. Federal and state officials are continuing investigations, but USDA says this detection does not change its overall HPAI response strategy. Stay tuned. We'll be back with today's weather next here on the Ohio AgNet.
When you combine the advanced technology of Enlist E3 soybeans with Seed Consultants' dedication to performance in the Eastern Corn Belt, it's a simply better experience. Our Seed Consultants brand soybeans are hand-selected, tested, and proven to perform in your conditions, backed by the local knowledge of Seed Consultants sales professionals. Buy into better soybeans with reliability and results packed into every variety. Visit seedconsultants.com.
Nearly 90% of farmers say that financial worries, constantly changing market conditions, and other uncontrollable variables take a toll on their mental well-being. Add in the weather and family dynamics, well, it's a lot to handle alone. But did you know farmers and their families can receive free confidential services from licensed professionals? Support is available 24/7 to help with the challenges you face. Look for Farm Family Wellness Alliance under the Resources tab at farmfoundation.org. Take care of yourself. Your well-being matters.
You're tuning in on the Ohio AgNet. Today's weather brought to us by Seed Consultants. Simply better performance online at seedconsultants.com. Here's the forecast.
Warm air starts to move into the Buckeye State today. I'm Chief Meteorologist Ryan Martin. Let's take a look at that Ohio ag weather update. Southwest flow developed around the backside of high pressure yesterday as it moved out. We really saw the benefit overnight, and we're going to be seeing it here today, tomorrow, and Thursday. Southwest flow raises temperatures quickly. I think we get pretty sloppy across Ohio here, as there's going to be a lot of snow melt today and tomorrow with decent sunshine. Clouds thicken overnight tomorrow night, and then through the day Thursday as a frontal boundary gets close. Thursday will be the warmest day, 40s and maybe even some lower 50s over the entirety of Ohio, but rain develops in the western part of the state between noon and about 3 o'clock, and then that front sweeps through the rest of the state into the early evening. By midnight, I think moisture's done pretty much everywhere, and that's good because cold air is coming in. If the moisture lingers into the cold air, we may see moisture end as snow, particularly in eastern parts of Ohio, but I don't think that's a big story here. The big story, though, is the brutal cold air coming back for one day and one day only as we move through Friday the 19th. That's going to be a cold day. Think yesterday morning levels, I think, here a little bit, but it is only one day. Temperatures moderate nicely again on Saturday the 20th, and then we're near normal for Sunday. Going into next week, I think the mild air holds pretty much all week long. Definitely Tuesday through Saturday, we are well above normal. That includes the Christmas holiday, maybe a few clouds around Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and a spit or a sprinkle, but nothing dramatic that causes problems as you're traveling. And honestly, I love these temperatures, which may even hold through the turn of the year. Best chance of rain here over the next 2 weeks outside of this Thursday front is probably some moisture south of I-70 for the 27th into the 28th. I'm Ryan Martin.
Hey, thanks, Ryan. Well, more help is on the way for farmers in 2026 on top of aid already announced. Farmers will see long-awaited relief from the estate tax next year, with the exemption rising to $15 million for individuals and $30 million for married couples under the president's One Big Beautiful Bill.
You love your children, and your children are great, and they want to be farmers, and you leave the farm and your children, and a lot of farms are, sort of cash poor, land-rich, cash poor.
Which Trump says did not help when it came time to pay the estate tax.
The kids would go to the local bank or to any bank and they'd borrow money to pay the estate tax, and they'd end up losing the farm. They go bankrupt. And because they love their farm and they love their business and they love that way of life, they'd end up committing suicide. A lot of suicides.
Separately, the USDA just launched a $700 million regenerative ag voluntary pilot program to boost soil and food health. Secretary Brooke Rollins.
The pilot brings USDA's Natural Resources Conservation Service, or NRCS, back to its core mission, helping people help the land through whole farm, outcome-based voluntary conservation that our producers trust.
Rollins says the key is whole farm planning to improve soil and water health at the same time using existing programs. The House was expected to pass the Senate-approved Whole Milk for Healthy Kids Act to include flavored or unflavored whole or low and fat-free milk in school lunches. Well, Mexico agrees to meet water treaty obligations. The United States and Mexico reached an understanding on meeting the current water obligations of American farmers and ranchers, and for Mexico to repay the water deficit in Texas as part of the 1944 Water Treaty. This agreement extends to the current cycle and the previous cycle's water deficit. Farmers from the southern United States are reeling from the uncertainty caused by the lack of water, said Ag Secretary Brooke Rollins. I thank Mexico for their willingness to abide by the treaty and return to good standing with their past obligations. She also said Mexico delivered more water in the last year than in the previous 4 years combined. With the understanding, Mexico has agreed to release 202,000 acre-feet of water to the United States, with deliveries expected to begin this week. Timely repayment of the outstanding deficit from the previous water cycle is also understood by Mexico. Well, what did the USDA's latest outlook for beef reveal in the way of month-over-month changes in beef production and steer prices forecast? Let's check in with Rod Bain from the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
Slight increases in beef production forecast for this year and next.
Up about 190 million pounds for 2025 and about 340 million pounds next year.
And lower month-over-month steer prices for 2025 and 26.
We reduced our steer price forecast by $2 per hundredweight for 2025. And then into 2026, we brought it down by about $11 per hundredweight.
World Agricultural Outlook Board Chair Mark Jekanowski Sadowski with the USDA December beef outlook. Behind the beef production rise both years, heavier weights for steers. As for the lower price projections, recent price weakness in both cash and future prices.
And at the same time, next year, there have been a few announcements of reduced slaughter capacity as well. So that would be expected to reduce the demand for cattle at some degree on the margin and contribute to lower prices there.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
Hey, thanks, Rod, for the update. Well, the Trump administration is unlikely to finalize the 2026 biofuel blending quotas before the end of the year, extending uncertainty for both the oil and farm sectors. Sources tell Reuters the Environmental Protection Agency has scheduled meetings with industry stakeholders in early 2026, signaling the final rule will not come out until next year. EPA officials say they are still reviewing public comments on the proposed volume requirements and have not set a timeline for the final decision. The delay is concern for the fuel producers, farmers, and commodity traders who rely on the mandates to lock in contracts, manage market risk, and plan investments. Earlier this year, the EPA proposed higher renewable fuel requirements for 2026 and 27. Stay tuned. We'll be back with your grain analysis and your overnight markets after this.
After years of dedication, Jim and Jody Johnson are retiring and selling their quality farm equipment through Purple Wave's December 30th Ag Auction. Don't miss their 2024 John Deere ExactEmerge 1775 NT Planter and 2019 John Deere S760 Combine. See the equipment yourself during open inspections at Osage, Iowa on Wednesday, December 17th and Monday, December 29th, both from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Visit purplewave.com for a complete listing. Purple Wave Auction. Straight, simple, sold.
It's now time for today's market analysis, which is brought to you by the Louis Dreyfus Company, excited to be building the newest state-of-the-art soybean crush facility in Upper Sandusky, Ohio. Call 574-566-2113 for information on soybean marketing to LDC. Here's Ryan Martin.
Grain market started on a lower note this week. We saw corn down 1 to 1.5 yesterday. Soybeans down 2 1/4 to 5.5 cents. And as we move into the bean meal, it was up slightly, but bean oil was down 50 to 60 points. Wheat market's down anywhere from 6 to 9 cents, depending on where you were looking. The Board of Trade was weak pretty much all day long. Soy oil stocks soared higher on the NOPA report that came out yesterday. That NOPA report was very interesting. Member crush in November totaled 216.04 million bushels. That was 4 million below expectations, but it still allowed for a record meal production and sizable build in stocks. Meal production totaled 5.1 million metric tons, 11% year-on-year higher, and oil stocks were at 1.51 billion pounds, up 429 million year-on-year, the largest increase for any month since June of 2024. That's the reason why we saw the soy oil markets under pressure yesterday, and I think by extension the entire soy market. So interestingly enough, that got put together with a very uninspiring soybean shipment report. The soy inspections report for the week ending December 11th, they totaled just 29 million bushels versus 38 million bushels the previous week, yet sales through mid-November down 470 million bushels year on year. Shipments through mid-December are down 425 million bushels. USDA absolutely has to cut the 25-26 soy exports in the January WASDE. The 400 million bushel discrepancy will probably not be recaptured, but the number has to go down somewhere, somehow. The pace of soy meal exports also is uninspiring. Total commitments through the mid-November timeframe up only 2% year on year. Adding to that, corn export inspections the week ending December 11th, 62 million bushels versus 69 million the previous week. Wheat shipments were 18 million versus 15 million the previous week. I'm Ryan Martin.
Hey, thanks, Ryan. Now let's take a look at your overnight trade brought to us by Seek Consultants. Simply better performance online at seekconsultants.com. Let's start off with March corn 439.5, down a quarter. May corn 447.5, down a quarter. As we turn to soybeans, January 1074.5, up 2 3/4. March soybeans 1084.25, up 3 cents. And July wheat, 536.5, down 1 3/4. Now as we turn to livestock from yesterday's close, December live cattle 230.82, up $1.02. February live cattle 230.55, up $1. February lean hogs, $83.85, down 67 cents. April lean hogs, $88.92, down 60 cents. March feeder cattle, $334.85, up 77 cents. And April feeder cattle, $333.77, up 55 cents. For the latest agricultural news, you can find that at ohioagnet.com. Thanks for joining us and have a great morning, everyone. You're listening to the Ohio AgNet.